All right, so yes, so this is 4,300. I did add some stuff down there, as I mentioned in D, about consequences, different consequences that you had in your current code of conduct or in your current policies that we didn't have listed here. Other than that, there weren't any changes to this.
Dr. Foust, did you have anything on this?
Not on this one. This one I'm good with.
I do actually.
Right.
So I'm wondering if in section D, consequences for violations, we want to mention our school justice partnership, our interagency governance agreement, which includes a graduated response system for infractions. I feel like the overall 4,300 might be the best place to mention that. And I can help come up with that language if that's helpful. I just wondered. I can see McKenna's face. Maybe I can show mine too. So, being that that is an interagency governance agreement that we have with our school justice partnership agencies, I just felt like this might be the place to add that. And then the unless there's any concern with that. And then regarding the serious violations section on page 4, the last part of D, in having a discussion with Jarrell Lewis, our Title IX director, it really seems like we might need a statement regarding Title IX offenses. And he has drafted a statement that's pretty much as follows: for matters involving sexual misconduct, and then he gives examples of sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking, refer to Board Policy 1725, Title IX sexual harassment, prohibited conduct, and reporting process before taking action. And then certainly would need to add a cross-reference to Title IX sexual harassment policy and the grievance process, because the responses to those serious violations would be a bit different.
Sure, yeah. If you could send me his specific language too, I'll add that. Sounds good.
And in his, I just want to make sure, to be clear, in his, he is suggesting the different policies from 4,300, probably about 12 or 13 policies that we would add that to. So I don't know if we need to review that, or if I can just send that to you for consideration, McKenna.
He wants to add that language to 13 different policies?
So 4,300, 4,301, 4,302, 4,303. It's the same series of policies where there's a range of consequences for certain behaviors. It's kind of like using that same language. I don't know what you think about that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no harm in adding it. I don't know that some of those policies, it would seem like sexual harassment isn't actually falling under those policies. It would fall under sexual harassment.
Okay.
I mean, there's no harm in adding that.
Okay.
Maybe, Julie, if you could just point those out when we get to the policy, and the
Perfect.
committee can decide whether it's appropriate in that place or not.
That sounds good.
And these are going on for first reading tonight, so I think that it might, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if they are, then we should probably make a note that there are going to be some changes, or they should be held up till the next meeting. I guess what I'm saying is, if all the changes are not going to be incorporated by the board meeting, then we probably should either make that known or hold up.
I would recommend you hold off on.
Yeah. Dr. Foust, am I correct that these are on for first reading tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
The 3000 series is first reading for tonight.
The 3000. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Good. I'm sorry for the confusion then. So then we should be able to get those incorporated before the first reading. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was beginning to panic to think that I was offering revisions too late.
No, I had to
Sorry.
look it up. I looked it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn.
You have a question on a different part of this one, if I may. On page 3, I'm sorry, Julie, were you finished with your portion?
Yes, almost. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll go after you.
No, the only other thing was mentioning when my team and I reviewed this, wondering if we needed to reference definitions in maybe an administrative regulations document, like in our current 8410, we have a section of definitions where we specifically define offenses and let me see, let me grab it, where we've got the definitions for affray or fighting, insubordination, school official, that type thing. And we have found that to be very helpful. I'm just wondering if that's something that we can still consider keeping in there, or if that's, and maybe that's what would actually go into a student code of conduct handbook.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Go ahead, Mr. Obriant.
I just had a question on page 3, where we're talking about minor violations of the Code of Student Conduct. And maybe I should read this last sentence where it says other disciplinary measures or responses may include but are not limited to. I guess my concern was down on B. Is that something we're allowed to do? Are we allowed to allow parents to actually, is that a practice that we typically do, to allow them to attend in classroom when there's a disciplinary concern?
I don't think it's a common practice, and I think that there are certain situations where that's not appropriate. There have been a couple of situations where I've known that to be done. Of course, it can't be done in a situation where there might be confidentiality, such as a exceptional children's classroom.
I think that was my concern more than anything, but and again, it doesn't say you have to, it says may include but are not limited to, but I just wanted to make sure we were okay with that.
Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that being removed. I wasn't, I mean, my team and I didn't focus on that one, but I'm really fine with that being removed if that was something that was just added because it's in 8410.
And I think that's exactly right. These are things that McKenna has pulled over from your existing policy, but now is a great time to sort of look with fresh eyes at those things that have been in the policy for a long time and see if they still make sense.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with removing that one.
And then also on page 4, and maybe I'm just not looking at this the right way, the last two, R and S, we have disciplinary reassignment and placement in an alternative school.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just like if you have a short-term suspension and maybe you're doing your days at a different school? Was that where that's covered, Julie, do you think?
Actually, our disciplinary reassignment would be typically what we do with a long-term suspension recommendation, where we offer and assign that alternative learning assignment, not really an ALP, but because that process is a little bit different by state board policy. But a disciplinary reassignment is pretty much what our long-term suspension program at JCRO is. And then S, placement in an alternative school, can be different than that process. That can be the alternative learning program process that the state board outlines with parental and school agreement based on a referral and not necessarily related to a disciplinary offense.
Yeah, I guess the reason I bring it up is that that's kind of what I thought as well, but these are listed under minor infractions or minor violations. You know what I mean? That seems like it seems out of place that these are under a minor infraction area versus what they're typically used for.
Well, and I think under a disciplinary reassignment, that can also be that short-term suspension process that we have
Okay.
outlined with JC Rowe as well.
Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you.
So could you add placement in an alternative school or program? Would that clarify? Under G. And
All right,
going back to parental involvement, why don't we just take out such as conference, and that way parental involvement could include all kinds of working conditions for to resolve it. This conference is pretty much a given, I think.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think conference serves are an important part. I agree, Ms. Nichols.
And Obi, since you're on, let me ask a quick question. Where it talks about the school shall create a student behavior management plan that elaborates further on processes for addressing student misbehavior and use of intervention strategies, and it goes on further. Wouldn't you think that could be incorporated into the school improvement plan through NC STAR?
I do, and I think likely they're probably in a student handbook as well. I would think that each high school would have that in their student handbook.
Okay. And this does outline that we would have a district-wide manual for that. And so we would offer a template for that handbook.
I agree.
Okay.
All right, does anybody have anything else on this one? All right, so with those changes, I guess we can go ahead and push that one forward.